Hey,
Hey,
what's going
welcome
on?
back. Nothing too much. How's it going?
Been good, brother. Been good. Just ready to get this CWS going. And obviously,
Yeah,
finally got into the book, chapters 1 and 2. So I'm ready to talk to you about it. Like I said,
yeah.
we already know that you already read it, so I'm really interested to hear your take on it.
All right. I'm really interested to hear yours on it too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a good read so far, man. So but it's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
How far did you get into it?
Yeah, so like I said, this we're just doing it like at pieces at a time. Chapters 1 and 2, obviously, the musical aspects, not quite
Yeah,
High School Musical or nothing or Grease or nothing like that. But I mean, obviously, just that team camaraderie. But we're gonna definitely get into it. I just thought that
yeah,
was a very fascinating piece of information. But yeah,
yeah. Definitely is. All right. Well, welcome back to the Just in Time podcast. I'm your
finally,
host,
baby.
Justin Robert,
Yes, sir.
and we're back here with Mr. Will Cottrey.
That's me. Class of 2012, baby. Don't forget.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna jump right into this. So let's go.
Yes, sir.
Which one? You want to start with the book or the World Series?
Let's actually start with this beautiful book that you
All
shared with
right.
me. Yeah, obviously we had talked about the introduction with the the preface. Last time we talked about the Flora from Warren Morris. We talked about the introduction. Like I told you, when you obviously recommended it, so obviously it's a great read by default. We talked about it last time that
Yeah.
just that alone, we had like over an hour worth of nuggets just from that small section. So if
Yeah.
the book is that good early, I know it's going to be an even better read moving forward. Like when we talked about when I was reading chapter 1, obviously I got my notes right here. Obviously Skip was still at Miami. You know, um, Coach Howard Schnellenberger to Skip. That was just a gripping part right there. You'll make a mistake if you don't
Yeah.
take the LSU job.
How about all the stories I've heard from Skip from the different media
Hmm.
and all of that,
Yeah,
going into interviews with him and how he was just this intimidating?
yeah, that's it right there.
Hearing
That's
him
it.
say, reading that he said in the book that he was frightened to go into that office because he had just failed one of the football players.
Exactly. Yep. Man, that's the thing that got me because obviously, now granted, I know Miami, obviously, Coach Howard, he was really building that legendary football program. So obviously,
Yeah.
he had a lot of cachet, even, just and like just to put in perspective how it was built, he had led the Miami Hurricanes to the 83 title, but this was a little before the 83 title. In that
Yeah.
same year, actually, when he had this conversation with Skip, he was also responsible for recruiting Joe Namath for Bear Bryant in 1961 because and it was such a fascinating thing because Skip was hesitant because his dream was to coach Miami.
Yeah.
He was really in this limbo phase because he was both a player and he's from Miami, just a lifer of the city.
Yeah. He caught and played the outfield for him from 58 to 60, and then from
Mhm.
75 to 83. No, I didn't write that right. Yeah, he was the pitching coach at Miami from 75 to 83, and then he coached at Miami Beach High School from 65 to 78.
Man, but that
So he was
alone.
deeply ingrained in that area.
Yeah, just in speaking of the Miami Beach era, he had, and it's amazing to me how much like when you talk about great coaches, they're such great visionaries. They're very
Yeah,
driven, and like he said, he had his players practice putting him on their shoulders before the
yeah,
state title game. I mean, that is gold, brother. Like
yeah.
which they won, by the way, of course, because he wanted them to quotes to see it
See
first,
it.
see it like seeing is believing for a lot of people, and
Yeah,
it's such a visionary thing to say. Like I said, it reminds me of Mike Krzyzewski, for legendary coach for Duke basketball. He said like early in his time before they started winning national championships, he said, when we win this ACC, this conference title, we're just gonna walk off like nothing, like we already knew it was gonna
yeah,
happen. So it's just like it's just having that visionary. Now, obviously, they end up going crazy regardless.
yeah,
But I mean, but just to have that instill that mindset to your team, I said, listen, we deserve to be here and we expect to be here.
yeah,
Because a lot of people they're gonna count you out, but we're not gonna count ourselves out. I just love that about him.
yeah. See, so I went to the super regional games last weekend. Speaking of, we're not gonna, we're just gonna act like we knew we were gonna win it.
Yeah.
When they won that super regional, LSU didn't. They celebrated,
Hmm.
but they didn't do the dog pile.
All right.
They knew they were gonna win it. They were going.
That's it. But yeah, it's like, and granted, you know, when you have a nationally prominent program, obviously you have the expectations are much higher. But even still, like it's just in the little things, you know, just this
Yeah,
shouldn't be an upset for us. This shouldn't be a huge
exactly.
celebration. It shouldn't be a huge celebration for us at this point. But it's like as I'm going through this book early on, you know, it was not always the case in us for us. You know, like obviously going back to you know, Skip Bertman and his en route to Miami's national title as an assistant, you know, he had the bag of tricks, the grand illusion, you know,
Yeah,
just like how it's so orchestrated, you know, but it's like when you're that calculated and you that have that vision mindset, you know, it's easier, should I say, just to come up with these this era of dominance. You know, I looked at reading LSU baseball from 1972 to 1983. They only had one NCAA tournament appearance, one conference
yeah,
title, and below 500 in SEC place in SEC conference 10 times under Jim
yeah.
Smith. And what was crazy
Yeah.
that, yeah, go ahead.
Let's see, where was it? Speaking of that, I think they said his record. Yeah, his record over his last 3 seasons at LSU. This was Lama Bees was 77 and 76 overall
Yeah.
over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's just it's remarkable. And what was crazy about Jim Smith, his main job was the football team's equipment manager.
Exactly. Like nobody cared about baseball back then.
That's and like this is why I always say like, you know, coaching college is very difficult because just in general, because it depends on what your athletic department prioritizes.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so much sweeter when you get to the top. And, you know,
Yeah, like we
go
talked
ahead.
about him teaching that class, that physical education class.
Mhm.
Back then, I think if you wanted to make any money as a college baseball coach, you had to teach classes.
That's it.
Can you imagine if when we were there, Palmineri was the coach? Can you imagine if Palmineri had a class?
Like actually, you know, being in this class, being in biology, then going out to see them play later that
Yeah.
evening like we used to.
Can you
Nah,
imagine
man.
if he had a class?
You know what? Like he was they're
I
the
feel
great
like he would
LSU
have
players
been
are tone setters, but
yeah. But just because I took a econ class, I think it was when Bregman was there. I had it with Bregman. I think it was Christian Ibarra and a few others. They would never go to class.
I don't blame him.
If they were in class, they were cutting up.
Like, I
And
had
when Maneri found out he was there,
a,
waiting for him so he could check them in and sat through the class one day to make sure they didn't leave.
I know that's right, brother. Accountability.
Yeah.
I had classes with Daryl Simon. I had a math class with Daryl Simon like freshman year, first class in college. Later on, I had a class with Trayvon Durrell. It was I don't know if it was like communication class, English class, but one of the two. Obviously, you have them sprinkled around, but I mean, like for the most part, they did come to class. I mean, at least in my
Yeah.
experiences. But you know, but then again, I don't blame a lot of those guys for missing. To be honest, I mean, they're not
I
here for
had a
that.
I had an agronomy class with some of the football players. I think it was our sophomore year.
Yeah,
If they would show up to class, but I'm pretty sure, like 90% sure, one of them had a blanket and a pillow, and he would just sit in the back and take a nap. And it wasn't like one of those big auditorium classes.
you can't say I wasn't
Yeah, that class was way harder than it should have been. I'm named after my dad.
it.
So when it pops up on that class thing. It says Todd Robert.
Yeah.
Well, my dad worked for the Sugar Research Station at LSU for years, and when he was there the first time, because he left and then went back, he helped them write studies.
Right.
So his name was listed on the thing. So we had to write a paper.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go. He knows about this. I'm gonna go get him to help me. And when he helped me with the paper, he used as reference some of their research that they did.
Right, right.
So when he basically wrote that paper.
And I was gonna, I said, listen, but you got the resource, you use it.
See, this is the main point of this story. He wrote the paper, okay?
Yeah.
And he quoted all of that stuff from there. This man gave me a C.
Excuse me?
Gave me a
That
C.
is
First of all,
ridiculous.
he had questions because he wanted to know why the name for the quote stuff underneath what's it called? The sources, cite sources,
A bibliography, you know, works cited.
bibliography or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, works cited. He wanted to know why the name said Todd Robert on it. And I told him that's because that's my dad. I used the research they did at the Sugar Research Station.
Mm.
So He was fine with that. Then he gave me a C, and I brought it to my dad. And my dad was like, "What the hell?"
I'm like, I gave you a C in my field. No,
Yeah, my dad
that's
was
crazy.
he was
No,
not the happiest. I thought he was about to write that dude an email and get me in trouble for having him write the paper.
reported that to you. I said, okay, I got you. That's
Yeah,
crazy, man. But see, like when you, I mean, read the room, brother. I'm like, dog, just
exactly.
read the.
Read the room.
That's nah. I'd have been mad.
Yeah, I was just happy with the C.
Nah, I mean, because I'm past it. So granted, I'm past. So I mean, I
That
ain't mad
class,
about that, but just.
that class was so boring. Like
I
I'm
know.
normal history classes I'm good with, but that was like the history of. I'm not gonna lie to you. The only time that class was interesting is when he started talking about the history of alcohol and how they made it from. That was
Right,
the
for
only
sure.
thing. And the only thing that made that interesting is because some of those football players, when he talked about our projects that we had to do,
Mhm.
was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go make a mini distillery in my dorm room or something."
All I
And he
need
was
is
like,
water, brother.
"You can't do that.
Let me stop you right there. Good.
Let me stop you right there."
That's good. Yeah, that's funny, bro.
But yeah,
Good.
back to the book. It's amazing how you can watch a game now, especially the LSU game.
Mhm.
After you read this book, you can pull some of the stuff out and say that player has no awareness.
That's it right there. What a tie-in, man. But like when you have great leadership, and then when you actually buy into that leadership, when you actually humble yourself and buy it, and like looking back on it, you say, "Oh yeah, that's where I messed up at that point,"
Yeah,
or that's where I see you at. I mean, I did the same things, and just like that's not going to lead you down the right path. And I think when it starts with a visionary, somebody who's committed. A lot of people
yeah,
have dreams and these visions and these ideas, but not committed to follow through.
exactly.
So they don't have a structure. They don't have a
Yeah,
consistency, a foundation.
like he talked about that how to win awareness, and the Warren Morris talked about that, and that awareness to look at the know where you are on the field, know how many outs, know what you're supposed to be doing. We had a player last week. I think it was during the Sunday game.
Hmm.
2 outs on first, ball hit in the air. He's should have been standing on third base. He's in the middle of first base, first
Yeah,
and second base, looking to see if the ball is caught before he runs.
right.
It's 2 outs. As soon as the ball leaves the bat, you should be running.
That's it, right? Yeah. But I mean, and it's like, and granted, all these things do take time. But I mean, time. I mean, it's one thing to take time, but you got to use it wisely.
Yeah, and it's one thing to
So,
take time. This is one of the smallest things. Okay, things like 2 out base running.
mhm.
If you made it to this level, you've been playing baseball since you were very young.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should know on 2 outs, anything, any contact you're running.
Yep.
That's just small
In
things.
play, in play.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I just I
Yeah,
want to bring up you know, we have the priority. It's easier when colleges have a priority because they make it easier on everybody else around them to build a program. Like I said, going back to
exactly.
Jim Smith, it's going to be hard to win if the coach's main job is a team equipment manager. And now, but I will say, Coach Bertman did bring up like, yeah, there's no second. Yep.
Okay, we're back.
Sure. All right, brother.
Had a little technical difficulty.
No worries, it happens. But what I was saying, like, we had talked about, Jim Smith. It's hard to build when baseball is not your main job.
Exactly.
And then like I was gonna say that, but one thing Skip Berman did bring up, he said there's no LSU state. He said because it's the only major school in the
Yeah,
state. So like, and it was interesting that he said like that South Alabama was a better program at the time than LSU is baseball wise. But the thing about South Alabama, it's not the premier university like Alabama and Auburn. And,
yeah,
it's interesting that he said that because what Matt Moscona always say all the time, one of the biggest advantages that LSU has in the sport of football is that, or just really any sport for that matter, it's the biggest. It's like the only high profile university in the state because the other
exactly.
school has like they have to compete with everybody else.
In state, we're not competing with anybody, really.
That's it. Yeah.
Out of state, we're competing with, as much as Alabama likes to come over here to the boot and pick people up, we're really competing with Alabama.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's
Some big
interesting
schools like
also,
Texas. Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting also that Skip went back to South Alabama and some of the improvements he made at Alex Fox came from South
Yep.
Alabama.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
you pick you notice like, and then you don't just look around, you take notes, just you really take it
Exactly.
in, but you just pick up nuggets from everywhere else. And you say, you know what?
Yeah.
I can see this. We have something here, but we need an inspiration. And I
Yeah.
can't do that just with it's just more than just like talking about and like coaching the sport. You gotta make that atmosphere happen. And we're definitely gonna get into that
Exactly.
with the concert.
Yeah.
Before that, I know going back to like I wanted to say earlier about Skip Bertman, just I always looked at him as this powerful, intimidating figure, but just like but when he went to Coach Howard, just mind you, Coach Howard, he had three straight winning seasons from 1980 to 1982, and it was the first time for Canes football since the mid '60s that happened.
Yeah.
Obviously they had like Jim Kelly, who was a Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mark Rick, who ended up coaching Georgia. Skip was
Yeah.
nervous about meeting Howard, and but Howard said that Ron won't be the Miami AD, which ultimately led Skip to go to LSU. Said, "Because I won't
Yeah.
allow it."
What was it quote at the end of that chapter?
Let's see.
Let's
I
see.
won't allow it. So don't waste your
I
time.
won't allow it. So what he did right after was
Call his wife.
he called Sandy and said his wife Sandy said, I want you to come with me to Baton
Baton
Rouge.
Rouge. That's it. And then look, pack your bags, honey.
Yeah.
Pack your
And that was
bags.
that was the start of everything right there.
I mean, you gotta start somewhere. And like
Yeah.
it's a powerful story. It's just so hard to see him being intimidated. I can understand at that time because he said in the book, basically, football schools ruled everything, especially the college game.
Yeah.
But I mean, because college baseball specifically is a lot historically regional.
Yeah.
We just talked about how in the past, how the West Coast dominated, and now it's a Southern sport. You still have your West powers and major sports, your schools, but
Yeah.
the landscape has changed so much.
Before we get into the next chapter, there's this argument going around from Tennessee fans
Yeah.
that they are the face of college baseball.
Maybe on a drawing.
Meanwhile, they're sitting over there with their sign, bragging about their appearances.
That's the red flag right there. God bless you.
Seven appearances. We hang up there in Baton Rouge.
No, we got 7 championships.
We hang up there in Baton Rouge, that big old Intimidator.
That's it.
With the big tiger head and
the national champions.
7 national championships along the top. I think somebody said on TikTok we've appeared in 20 of the last 40 World Series.
But you're bragging about 7 total
And
appearances.
7 total appearances in 1 championship.
Yeah, you're the face of college baseball.
Yeah.
Okay, God bless you.
You're the face of college baseball with 1 title. And then you got Arkansas over there saying that they're the face of college baseball and they don't even have a title. Chance at a title, they missed the pop fly that cost them the whole thing.
You know what? Look, and we were just talking about, I love a visionary, but I like a realistic visionary. You know what I mean? I want to honor somebody that's honest.
Look, the NCAA, I don't know if they did this on purpose or they just can't look up at the Intimidator and see we only won 7, or they have a profit or something, a baseball profit. They can see the national championships, but during the regional and super regionals, they put up the history and everything, like the history of baseball and stuff, and they put up the last 4 or 5 national champions. And when they got to 23 and they said LSU, they put up their 8th.
They get to exist.
We haven't won the 8th one yet, but I'm going to take that as a good omen, and we say we're going to win the 8th one this year.
The 8th wonder.
Before we go ahead and jump into chapter 2, let's talk a little bit about this year's World Series.
Of course, absolutely.
We've got
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
We've got today playing, I think at 2:00, at 1:00 Central Time, a rematch from the 2016 World Series Championship Series.
I know, right?
Of Arizona and Coastal Carolina.
Man, you talk about 2 national championship winning schools. You talk about one of the greater runs like a decade ago, just with Coastal. Like, we were talking about before we went
live.
That
was painful for us.
Oh, that was sick. It was like we was juniors, sophomores, and sophomores in college. Man, that was sick because UCLA won in 13. Our freshman year, and then like Coastal just came out of nowhere. And that's one of the greatest Cinderella runs. Was it? I thought it was 16. 14 or 16, yeah. I think actually no. Yeah. You're right. Because I think Vandy was 14. That's right. I got mixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for correcting me.
Thank you, because I had said 16, and then you said sophomores in college, and that was
Yeah, so I was like, yeah,
throwing me
because
off a little bit.
no, yeah, that's my fault. Yeah, because Vandy had that first one early, and then a few years
Yeah.
after that. So yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
nonetheless, it was. I mean, I was looking at the video a couple days ago. Just I know many people like the Cinderella stories. A lot of people like, especially with these longer postseasons. I'm more of a blue blood guy personally.
Yeah.
It's just like, cause, and I'm not one of those people that say like sports is just better when like college football is just better when Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame win. I'm not necessarily that far
Yeah.
like that, but just when you talk about college sports, you can't dominate everything. But when you have that one or two sports that people associate with you automatically, it just hits
Yeah.
on a different level. And like that's what you see in this tournament. With LSU, of course, winning seven. Obviously, Arizona's won several. They had a great run in the mid '70s, early mid '80s, like winning like three or
Yeah.
four in that time for which is incredible. Obviously, Oregon State's been steady, won three national titles. Yeah, just obviously got the coastal, was like the mid major programs, and it was interesting. I looked on NCAA.com, and it was talking about let's see if I can pull it back up. You talk about
Yeah, we
Murray
have.
State, like trying to continue that mid major four seed legacy.
Yeah. Let's see. I think Oregon State was the last non-SEC school to win it.
Yeah.
Won it all. But you know what? I'm all for a good, Cinderella story and
Mhm.
all of that, but not when my Tigers are playing. And you know
Yeah,
what? Everybody's praying on the FCC's downfall.
they're gonna be praying for a long time.
They will be praying for a very long time because I got LSU winning it all this year.
I mean, you can't. It's hard to argue that because, like, I know people, a lot of pundits and fans, especially, they get this SEC fatigue. I think, but you gotta understand. Look at the dominance in multiple sports.
Exactly.
We had six straight national championships in football. Almost had a seventh with Auburn,
Yeah.
but Florida State. But obviously, we won several in a row in baseball, and then basketball had like the most men's basketball had the most teams in the tournament for one conference ever. And
Yeah.
the SEC school won. So look at the dominance. It's not just about
Yeah.
you can
It's
talk
not
about
just about
fatigue
it's
and
about
stuff.
one sport. It's
Yeah,
like the slogan. It just means more.
yeah. I know. And I was gonna bring it up too because a lot of people think that's corny. I said, listen, don't get bitter because you're not putting the time and resources into your programs.
Exactly.
The SEC took the football blueprint. I said, listen, look at all the money they got from football. Okay, we're gonna put it in there in other sports. The LSU was already historically successful. Texas was already historically successful. Florida historically, but look at what's happened. Like Vanderbilt, South Carolina, they're one of like what 15 schools in D1 baseball history to win multiple national titles. Look at what these schools have done. So it just comes down to that.
I mean, it's who the SEC school is going to win the World Series this year. It's either going to be LSU or Arkansas, and it's all going to come down to what happens tomorrow night.
I'm glad you brought that up, brother. I got this Arkansas page on Reddit posted this, and I got the tail of the tape. I'm gonna read it out to you.
All right.
Obviously, Arkansas, as you like to call it, number three.
Yeah.
And we're number six nationally. So the records, Arkansas is 48-13. We're 48-15. Batting average, they bat 313. We bat 300 exactly. Slugging percentage 558 for Arkansas. On base percentage, Arkansas is 422. We're 414. Fielding percentage, they're 98-4. We're 98-1. We have more errors. And I'm like I said, I'm just reading out the tail of the
Yeah.
tape. They have eight fewer errors, 33-41. We have a better ERA though, 382 to 391.
We've got the future number one pick in the draft too, throwing tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's the equalizer. Runs per game they got 8.8, we got 8.1. Hits per game they got 10.5, 10.0. The balls to the walks to per 9 innings, they got 3.12, we got 4.32. And you got the strikeouts to walks ratio, 3.57 to 2.74, and they got more home runs, 124 to 101. Now, obviously, Arkansas outclasses on paper, they outclass LSU in many of those categories. But if you look at half those categories, they're like neck and neck.
Yeah.
So like that's what makes it the equalizer, like you said, with Kane on the mound, and then of course we got Einstein,
Anthony Eisen.
Yeah.
Or because Eisen took care of business against Arkansas and during the regular season.
That's right.
When we beat them 2 out of 3.
Yep.
You
know, that's what gives me.
You could go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the best 1-2 punch in baseball right now.
Right.
And I can see him throwing a curveball and saying, okay, Anthony, you get the ball tonight. I don't see him doing like he did in the SEC tournament where he starts Anderson and then goes to Ison. That's just too much on the line.
Right. Yeah. Especially
Especially,
this stage.
yeah, especially when you don't have a true number 3 starter.
Mm.
You got a bunch of guys that come out and do good, and then a guy that's killing it out the bullpen in Evans.
Yeah.
But I don't see that. But we can talk about pitching all we want, but if they don't hit, then it doesn't matter.
You know,
And they've been on the last 2 weekends except for Little Rock.
Mm.
And I have to say, anytime you catch a line drive at first base and you fall and you land on first base for a double play, the baseball gods are on your side.
No, I mean, but it's just, but like you need periodically need breaks like that. But I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of people rely too much on breaks. I said, listen, if you got to rely too much on breaks, I said you're not supposed to be advancing this far. And
exactly.
if you do advance this far, it's gonna come to a quick end.
Yeah,
So,
and I will say this, baseball is a lot about skill and preparation,
yep.
mental toughness, but a lot of that comes down to luck too, because against West Virginia to start our big innings, we had a couple of pop flies hit to the second baseman in that second game.
Man, like the thing, and we talked about this with like they got a lot of LSU fans real quick talk about West Virginia. They're really on the rise of the program, back to
Yeah,
back supers, and like coaching his first season. In his first season there, I don't know if he was assistant on staff last year. I'm not sure, but Coach Saban he led them to a school record in wins. I said they're on the rise, but
yeah,
what we always say, put money into that program. No, when
yeah,
you and me when we was coming up, it was a football school because they had Pat White and Steve Slayton when we was in middle school.
yeah.
The option offense was a nightmare. And in high
Mm-hmm.
school, they had Geno Smith, Tavon Austin, Stephen Baylor. They were like a more like a passing team, but they were a steady football program.
Yeah,
Obviously, in basketball, Kevin Pittsnogle with like the Final Four run, but they're not where they once were in those sports. You
yeah,
got to put money into that baseball program.
yeah. And I will say this, for a team that only had 55 home runs on the season,
Yes.
they played great on the road all season long.
Unbelievable away from home. Unbelievable.
In this day and age when the home run is the main moneymaker for teams, that's how they win their games. West Virginia, if they would have came out that super regional, I could see them being the champion.
Yeah, I mean, just like this playing away from home, that's a great edge. I know what hurt them a lot. Obviously, the errors didn't help in that series against
No,
LSU, but the
not at
fielding didn't
all.
help them at all. But their
No.
pitching, their pitching wore down. I know people talk about the
Yeah,
humidity for especially like a program like that plays in the mountains, but just in that it's a different type of climate, which I understand. But it's just the pitching wore down. So like they could
yeah,
attack that portal, but but I also saw not to get too off tangent, but just some of the West Virginia fans were just so upset with the team, with the coach. I said,
yeah,
listen, this is what happens. Like this is what happens. This is going to prevent y'all from getting a national prominent
yeah,
program. You guys are ungrateful for a school record
exactly.
without the home runs, without like the high end pitching staff, with the errors, and y'all
Yeah,
still made it this far.
I will say this: the only teams that can get away with, and fan bases that can get away with acting like that, are SEC schools.
There you go.
LSU
Raise my
in
hand.
particular.
That's it.
LSU in particular, because we have set such a high standard,
Yeah.
especially for baseball. We just look at baseball. We've set such a high standard in the '90s
Yes.
and in the 2000s. I think 2011 was the only year we didn't make it to the postseason,
Yeah. That's
and I
it.
think we should have,
Yeah.
but
I
they
know
didn't
it's
like
not an
that.
easy. It's not an easy feat,
Yeah,
of course, but it's like I never played college baseball, and I've never coached it
never
either.
played either.
So, but
Yeah,
it's just like, but I see what I see, and like the resume speaks for itself. I mean,
exactly.
you have the resources, you have the pedigree, you have the support. So, like more times than not, you need to take that step. It should be
Yeah,
automatic, even in a tough conference like this.
yeah, and I think Jay Johnson has done a great job coming into this. I mean, he made it to the regional championship.
Yep.
The regional championship is as low as he's gotten out so far at
Yeah.
LSU.
Yep. Region. That's it.
In both games, both regional champions, you can make the argument that we just ran out of gas because we came back from the losers bracket
Right.
and had to play 6 games.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch. Remember last year? I said last year we lost to North Carolina in Chapel Hill Regional. I feel like that was his greatest coaching job. That was like the greatest coaching job I've seen as I've been watching LSU baseball for like a decade or
Yeah,
so. Consider how poor they started in conference play to start all the season all together, the way they rallied, and just to have that run at the end. But like you said, just ran out of
yeah.
gas. This wasn't
But I
their
think
time.
too, what differentiates this team this year from last year's team is Skip Bertman had this video he put out a while back,
Hmm.
like a while back, and I think it surfaced on YouTube. He did a presentation with Nichols where he basically said, you can have all these people, these straight nickels that fit into the system, these guys that fit into the system, and then he had two bent nickels, and he said, and you can have one or two guys bent out of shape. And sure, you can carry them for a little while, but what it all boils down to is everybody's got to buy into the system.
That's
And
right.
you can carry those guys for a long time, but you can't stack more on top of them.
Right.
And I think that's what happened with last year's team with a few players that hit the transfer portal. One went to Alabama, and this year they're all together. They look like people who have fun playing together.
That's such a big thing. Like, speaking of, I love that segue to chapter two because, like, when I said, you know what, I like this band. So I know y'all heard about this band that's gonna be at
Yeah,
the PMAC. So it's like, but it's just like it's the team bond. It's just so much more building a culture. Like, you gotta have high demands, and you gotta have the team building camaraderie.
yeah. This is a little later on in his book, but one of the things he says is play the best nine, not the nine best.
Yeah, I love
Meaning
that.
you play your best players that fit together, that work
That's
best as
it.
a team, and not necessarily your nine best players.
That's it. I love it. A cluster of people doesn't equal a unit.
Exactly. And I
So.
think in today's day and age, with tournament ball and everything, you lose sight of that a little bit.
Mhm.
Because these tournament teams, some of these kids might be friends, but for the main part, these coaches aren't looking for friends and things. They're looking for the
Right.
best players because at that age, the best players will get you over the hump.
Yeah, and the thing is, and it's so important to distinguish that, because a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes, it gets brought to the field, and
Yeah,
so when you don't have that stuff, when you don't have like stuff in line, and I'm not saying everybody's gonna be buddy buddy all the time.
yeah.
That's just like
We're
not
people.
realistic. Yeah,
We're people. You can have a brother or sister that you fight with.
right.
And when you get to that level at college, in college, I think it's more of a brotherhood than anything else.
Yeah, that's
You're
it.
with these people you might get a little break in the summer right after the season,
Yeah,
but come fall, you're right back with the same people,
right.
and you're with the same people day in and day out. You're going to have few little arguments. You might have some guys that don't get along, but you just got to work through that.
Sure. And you see that, and you see those results on the field ultimately.
Yeah,
Just like perfect example, Little Rock's last game in Little Rock, the elimination game. That
yeah.
was about as poor as a start as you could have.
Mm-hmm.
I said, brother, let's regroup. You see the situation, but we know who we are. We see the situation, know who we are, and we know what we're capable of when we're all locked in. Just regather
Exactly.
yourself, refocus, and go out and dominate.
Yeah, you got people like Josh Pearson,
Yep.
played all 4 years.
And so he's been through the trenches.
Yeah, this is the first year that all 8 teams weren't there last year in Omaha. I think LSU has
That's a great story.
I think LSU has an advantage here because we have Ethan Fry, Josh Pearson,
Yeah.
Jared Jones, and Gavin Guidry. Who Guidry might not be playing, but he might just be in the dugout. But
That's intangible value right there.
he threw the last out, got us the last out of our 7th championship. What makes me laugh
Nice.
is, so Jared Jones, talking about his freshman year, that 23 season,
Yeah.
he did a press conference and said, I didn't play much my freshman year. I got into maybe like a couple good at-bats in postseason in 5 games.
Mhm.
And I think it was Michael Cobble went on Twitter and posted it and then posted the fact checks. Dude, you played in 55 games your freshman year.
Man, but listen, hey,
You know
uh,
what? You got to have a short memory to be a baseball player because not everything's
I-
going to go
that's
your.
it. Because I was going to say, like, I mean, just guys locked into the task at hand. Because and then the thing is,
Yeah,
granted, like that team, they were overshadowed with star, like with Cruz and Skeens, on the mound, just like
Trey
obviously
Morgan.
Trey Morgan, Tommy White, just like it's like those guys, they got so much attention from the media,
Yeah.
rightfully so. But it's just like
And there's a couple of
there's
guys out there that say LSU only won that national championship because of Paul Skeens. And to them,
Paul Skeens scoring, they won 18-4.
yeah, but Paul Skeens is a generational talent. He's a great
Yes.
pitcher. He might be the best pitcher in the MLB right now.
Yes.
But look at his MLB career. You cannot just say LSU won the 23 national championship because of Paul Skeens. Because the best example of why that's false is Paul Skeens' MLB career right now. When you don't have a team behind you that's doing their job to make sure you win, Paul Skeens is the best pitcher in the MLB right now with the worst record.
And the thing, and that's the thing and that's another whole topic. People get so attached to like the win-loss records for pitchers, quarterbacks, and goalies, but it's like it's not a. There's only so much you can control, and not every pitcher hits. So it's like,
exactly.
But I mean,
now if he hit, if they let him hit, he'd probably score runs. Because
you know what they got right now? They got so much going on in Pittsburgh, man.
In 23, I went to the little spring scrimmages before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Skeens was a two-way player at that point still.
Yeah.
And he picked up a bat. He put one either to the fence or over the fence twice.
That is a cheat code, man. Walking, breathing cheat code.
Yeah. If they let him hit, he would just be like, Thanos at the end of the first Avengers movie. Fine, I'll do it myself.
My gosh.
But back to what I was getting at, though. You don't win that World Series in 23 without Trey Morgan's play.
Yeah, so
against Wake Forest.
So unbelievable. Oh my goodness. They had that on loop.
Yeah, Tommy White's walk-off hit.
Yes.
Then you don't, when you get to the championship series, you don't win that first game against Florida without Josh Pearson making that catch in left field.
Yes. But it's all, when you're aligned, you just do what you can.
Exactly.
Do what you're supposed to, but do what you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can only do so much by yourself anyway in a team sport. But at least come just operate in your assignment.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes Jay one of the, if not the best coach in college baseball, is how he turned that team around last year.
It's such an incredible coach. Like I was just so blown away. You and I, we went to our fair share of games together.
Yeah.
Like last year was like the first year that I really looked at it from start to finish every game. Shout out to the Wheels YouTube account, made a shout out. But that's a gold account right there. But they started off so tough last year, man. It was frustrating. But I was like, you know what? It's still early because the schedule's gonna soften up. And to their credit, they turned it around.
They turned it around.
Yeah.
They did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Chapter 2 and get into it, predictions for the finals of the World Series?
LSU versus the world, baby.
All right. That's pretty much how it is. I got LSU versus Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
This is going to be a revenge series for LSU and Jay Johnson.
That's what I'm looking forward to. I mean, it's obviously Arkansas. I'd be surprised if we sweep Arkansas personally. I mean, but it ain't gonna be no cakewalk, I don't imagine.
No. Our side of the bracket is going to come out tested, maybe with a disadvantage pitching wise because they'll have to pitch until Thursday.
Yeah.
But it's going to be LSU or Arkansas that comes out. I'm hoping it's LSU, and I'm hoping we play Coastal. I'll take Arizona too because that's a storyline too.
Yeah.
Jay Johnson versus his old team.
That was the one I was looking towards because you got the revenge factor with Coastal, but imagine the ratings with that, the storylines with the former program. You go from one historic program to another, the most historic program. So it's like a full circle moment for him. I know they're gonna flood him with questions. I see it coming. So actually, that'll be my number one outlook. But like I said, man, as long as LSU's on top for the eighth wonder, I mean, I'm good with it. So
my favorite quote from last week, came from Jay Johnson. They asked him about playing Arkansas and what time, and he just said, "Night game, Arkansas, book it."
Stone said the same thing. Book it.
Yeah, book it. Now the Jello Shot record, Jello Shot challenge over there. LSU was in third at the 5 p.m. update yesterday.
Yeah.
And they took that personally and they came out, they were 100, 200 ahead of everybody else. Rocco's messed up when they ordered just 120K Jello shots because LSU alone, I think the fan base said the goal number was 100, 100K. And they'll definitely get there.
Yeah, hey, it's
Yeah.
like as long as it's winning the championship, I'm good, brother.
We're gonna win both championships. We're gonna win the national championship and the Jello Shot Challenge.
Hey, keep the Jello shot though. Look, I just take regular Jello. I'm old school.
Yeah. No, I did one just to say I did it.
Let that be your last one, brother. Look. Get the Yeti water, baby.
I got my water.
Good.
Let's see. Yeah. And going back to the Super Regional.
Yeah.
This is how you said it was humid and stuff for their pitchers and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It was so hot out there on Saturday.
Look,
I made probably one of the best catches of my entire life.
man,
You know,
like
it didn't get on ESPN. They didn't show it.
so disrespectful, man.
But I was just sitting there, and the way the nets are, it had to come right to me. It came right to me. I was just sitting there, sitting down. Didn't even get up, just stuck my hand up and caught it. I didn't. Probably what didn't help me was I didn't jump up and down and everything. I pretty much just caught it and put it back down, and that was it. I was so hot out there. I was hoping they would get that third out so I could go home.
And speaking of the Heat, I got the two fans, the next fans you were
You
recommending.
did?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got came to the mail yesterday. Well, I'm gonna keep one for work in my locker and the other one for
One
yard
for
work.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it has a good battery life. It lasted Jay Johnson likes to make these games 4 hours no matter what. And it lasted the whole game, and it lasted the Sunday game too, through the rain delay, and I took it off a little while at the rain delay.
Right.
But it lasted that rain delay and then the whole game, and then when I got home it still had some charge to it.
Yeah, that's
But but it was so hot.
Yeah, it's been warm,
And
man.
I am not a big fan of banana ball. But that made me wish they were playing a banana ball game where the fan catches the ball and it's an out.
Yeah.
Because they were just taking so long to get 3 outs.
That's the thing, though, because I remember watching on television, like, just the amount of umbrellas.
Yeah. And it was like
the whole row had umbrellas.
Yeah, it was like that USC game, UCLA game from last year at Tiger Stadium.
Bro, I was at work and but throughout the season they would by the entrance door at work they would have it on TV. Yeah, so I was like, I know they're not weird. I know it's historic tradition, but I know good and well they do not have these purple uniforms on in September. I know, granted, I know like historically they wear purple for non-conference home games, but I'm like, bro, y'all gotta do something about that.
But if you notice this year, they put out the TV schedule, and most of our games are in September.
Yep.
Florida game 6:30.
6:30.
Louisiana Tech game 6:30.
All right.
Not even ESPN wants to go out there and sweat like that.
They said like one of the guys who like I forgot the name because he had talked to Malascona like just he wanted to prioritize that. He wanted to prioritize LSU fans, like SC fans in general. Like, what would they prefer? Now you're not gonna get every single window you like, but just do what you can.
Yeah. Now look, as cheap as LSU is, you know you're in trouble when they tell you to bring a sealed 32-ounce bottle of water into the game with you.
Hey man, listen, they taught arm and a leg and all that. But I mean, hey, do what you can, man, because they had like people passing out last. I said they gotta change it. And the thing is, I'm a warm weather guy, and like I don't really care. I mean, I never had a strong preference for what time the football plays. I'm more of like that 2 o'clock, that 3 o'clock window, because not too early, not too late. But I get the preference for night though.
Yeah, but that's just a good segue to the rest of this chapter too.
Yes, sir. You know, I put up after they had a tough start. You know, they had a tough '88 season. They lost so many games by one run. They couldn't finish.
Yeah,
And like
couldn't finish, and I think let's see, they were 10-17 and lost 10-17 of one-run games that season.
That's right. You know, it was just like it was a disappointment. Like, I mean, they were just right on the door, but what he did was, Skip Bertman took like a radical approach. You know, he moved the practices to 2-a-days, which is
went to that football mentality.
Yeah, with famously associated with football. You know, just that 2-a-days. You know, that's. I mean, but you gotta be take big swings, especially when you're trying to create a culture of winning.
Exactly. And
So
I think, let's see, where was it? That two-a-days helped them
big
because
time.
at the midpoint of the season, they were 3-0 in one-run games.
Yep, that's it.
I think that would come back and they would drop 2 one-run games to Mississippi State in a doubleheader.
All right.
Yeah. But that was just Skip. Skip knew that series was coming up, so he sent one of his student coaches, I think, into the stands in street clothes to go make sure the bathrooms were clean, test the acoustics at the box, in the concessions.
Hey,
And for that Mississippi State series, when they came up and it was what,
they was
1
number
and 3?
3 in the nation, man.
Yeah, and they came up and he had a new sound system that would I think they said it would put Bon Jovi's sound system to
Living on a prayer.
shame. Yeah.
Halfway there. Man, I just love how he did it so cool, you know. Say, oh, by the way, I'm not sure if you guys heard, Bon Jovi
Yeah.
gonna be playing at the PMAC tonight. He already had it all under, you know, he already had it all under control, man. And his wife were huge fans. Obviously, they were like on this legendary run, you know, on tour.
Yeah.
You know, they were just on another level at that point. Yeah, I see it right here. You know, Berman had a brand new, powerful Bose, and you know, Bose iconic brand. The sound system installed.
Let's see. Season before in '88, you know, it wasn't the pitching that let them down. It was the bats.
Yeah.
Because they said LSU pitching in '88 led the SEC in strikeouts with 519.
Yeah, man.
We had Russell Springer with 156 strikeouts, and then Ben McDonald with 144.
Yeah.
Ben McDonald would later go on to set the strikeout record that Skeens broke.
Yep, that's right. I mean, just like, but you need guys to like set the code. I mean, they don't get recognized as much as like Warren Morris does or Skeens or Cruz, but
they put the work in.
They put the work.
They put the work in to build the coach. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's just but like you said, man, just you know, they packed the assembly center, man. It was and like one thing I love, you know, they had you know, obviously Skip and his wife didn't attend the concert, but you know, they bought him a T-shirt. You know, they sketched his name on there.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Skip back kicking ass was what the T-shirt said.
Yeah.
But we talked about the attendance record last week on the last episode.
Yep.
At the time in '89, they set the crowd record at 6,977. 6,977. We are what? 7,000 more?
About 7,000 more. Cause I know when we was playing West Virginia. West Virginia has they sit about 3,000 or 4,000 people in their baseball stadium. We got about maybe 12,000 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it just shows you how far they've come.
Yeah.
And so I know it's an older venue, but it's just
but you know they have a lot of room for improvements too.
Yeah.
At the box, like I like where the bullpen is for both teams, the visiting team and for the home team.
Right.
And you know they could move the visitors bullpen under the left field bleachers. That's asking for trouble though. Just because of, you know, LSU fans, we care about our baseball.
I said, listen, like I said,
we heckle that visiting bullpen.
And the thing is, like we heckled in the student section. That fielder, me and Josh. But it's like, they've done so many improvements.
Might get a little heat from this, but
there you go. Go ahead.
I love our student section to death. I really do. Act like you've been there.
Yes.
We've had twice this season where one of them ended up in ejection. They threw something at the Tennessee right fielder, hit him, and we had to take a delay. They kicked the kid out and everything. Had to go on the field and get the stuff. This weekend in the Super Regional, threw something on the field. You know, had to take a timeout to go get something off the field.
You have to draw the line in the sand at some point. I love the passion, but it's just some shit is unnecessary.
This isn't Tennessee. We don't throw stuff on the field. Where else? This isn't Texas either. We don't throw stuff on the field, especially not when we're winning.
Yeah, listen, because they had a big thing about that with football. You know, the Texas game. It's just like, come on, act like, come on now,
act like you've been there.
Because
everything else you do is great. All the cheering and everything is great, but stop throwing stuff on the field.
Yeah, please.
You want to throw back a home run ball that another team hit? I'm fine with that. That's I'm fine with you throwing the ball back. Don't throw stuff on the field. Speaking of throwing stuff to fans, though, Derek Curiel in the last Super Regional game brought a glove of baseballs out and then 2 in his hand, and he threw them to kids in the stands.
Yeah, I mean, just when you engage with the fans too, it's easy to obviously not going to be close to everybody, but I know just it helps build the brand of the program. When you do engage, 'cause,
And it
you know you
shows you
have
appreciate your fans.
yeah, it just builds the continuity and the closeness to an organization and a fan base, and it makes it easier to cheer for. It really does. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I want to cut. They want me to cut short. I want to make sure I gotta. Yeah, just I had a blast, man.
We went a little longer with the technical difficulties.
It happens, but we did it though. Yeah, I got
Any closing thoughts?
You know, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
No, it always had a blast, man, being on here. I know. Maybe tell your followers. We're gonna be talking about chapters 3 and 4 next. So definitely get ready for that. We're gonna definitely link the channel into the in the description box and in the comment section. We're gonna pin it. So follow my guy, people. Follow my guy. We got over 1.3K views on one of the shorts. He's coming up quickly. So it's been a blast, man. I'm happy for you.
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate you being on.
I always appreciate you having me. Just want to
This makes it a whole lot easier when you got somebody that you can bounce stuff off of.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, obviously we already have a close knit continuity. Obviously, we're always gonna come prepared. So I mean, it's gonna make it easy. We can just easily, just flow in conversation. So yeah.
Exactly. That makes it a lot easier when you just flow with somebody. Yeah.
Without question, man. Hey, you on Reddit?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I created my Reddit account yesterday. I'm just trying to build up like in each community. That way, I'm trying to like share it out at some point because Reddit is very strict about their communities and understandably so. But I'm just.
But I'm not gonna lie. Reddit kind of scares me because some of the stuff that pop up on there if you're not careful.
Oh yeah.
But I've got the Facebook page, Twitter, TikTok, and an Instagram and a YouTube page.
For sure. And make sure the link the super link you send me, you can put that pin that to the comment section too.
All right.
So there we go. That way all your links will be in one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I made it, because I thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
to close it out, have a good morning, a good night, or whatever you want to have. Just make it a good one.
And go Tigers.
Make it a good one. Go Tigers.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right, we're going to sign off from here.
All right, brother.